Art 4, this is a very brief tutorial on introducing you how to take some of your figure drawing, gesture drawings, let's be specific, your gesture drawings, and take them into some abstract ideas that you're going to be expected to use for this assignment. So this is just a tutorial. You'll get some more information in class, but hopefully this will help guide you as well. So this video should be watched after about 4 days of some figure drawing or gesture drawing that we're going to be doing. So we're going to be learning about gesture drawing and figure drawing 101. We'll be dealing with some of the terms that you can see on the screen in front of you, and we'll be going through those in class over a course of several days. At the end of 4 days, you should have in front of you at least 8 to 10 gesture drawings that you did based on some of the models we had of your fellow students modeling in class. And we'll talk more about that in depth. Once we've got those gesture drawings complete, your job now is to select several of those gesture drawings or make photocopies of your best gesture drawing and use it multiple times to develop an abstract idea or an abstract composition. So let's go back to Art 1 and talk about what abstraction is. It's the idea of distorted reality. It's where you're trying to express a mood, a message, or an aesthetic style through an altered reality. So although we can still see some things in there that we can identify from reality, they've clearly been altered or changed so that they don't really represent high realism. So if you look at the image that is on my Google slide, you can see two figures look like they're kind of reclining on the beach with a really strong sort of red-orange sun in there. Clearly that's not reality. It has been abstracted significantly, but it clearly displays a mood or a message. So how do we get to that point? So imagine that you have a variety of figure gesture drawings completed. I just have one here just as a sample. I have taken and I've put that one gesture drawing on some pretty heavy duty cardstock. So paper that's a little more like a card and a little less like paper, but this certainly will work with just good old fashioned paper. So I have done and did a little bit more of a refined drawing of that contour drawing. So I've taken what was originally a gesture, a drawing based on movement, and I've now gone in and cleared up the contouring. So I've cleaned up the lines so they're not quite as sketchy as they might have been at the beginning, but now they're a little bit more refined. I haven't spent a great deal of time on the portrait of the face. I just made some notations where the nose is going to be and where the eyes are, and I focused more on the outside or exterior shape. That's what's important for this lesson, is the exterior shape of the figure. I then took an X-Acto knife and carefully cut that out. So what I really now have in front of me is two tools. I have the tool that is this stencil that I can use for the negative shape that's in this piece of tan paper, but I also have the positive that I can use as a stencil, or I could even glue onto something. So in my sketch journal here, I decided to practice, so you can see just some unintentional mark making. So I simply did some what's called automatonic drawing, where I didn't really kind of get caught up in what I was drawing. I just wanted marks and movements and motions, and I sort of limited myself to a pretty small color palette of sort of a pink teals and some really washed out greeny grays and a little bit of that washed out blue. I can use that as a background to now my stencil that I've created from my gesture drawing that I then converted into a contour drawing. So you're going to be learning in class about 5 different possible techniques: silhouette, transparent overlay, visual framing, foreshortening, and distorting the surface. You're going to be also getting a piece of cardboard from me. You're going to select the piece of cardboard and its size. I'm going to let you decide that. And you must create at least one, preferably up to 3 figures on the same piece of cardboard in the media of your choice. So this is my sketchbook sampling because I wanted to practice my process. So I did this background. I did a second practice. I'm going to pull that up. I did a second practice of mine on a piece of watercolor paper, and I did the same automatonic painting and drawing. So you can see swirls of paint. You can see some bubble wrap that I printed or stamped. I put a little bit of watercolor on the bubble wrap and then stamped it through the background. I'm going to move my camera just a little bit at an angle so you can see a little more of her figure. And then in this case, I took the stencil, the positive image, which I could very well just glue down on there and use in some capacity. But what I did was I took a colored pencil and I traced that silhouette of that figure and used it to then use gouache. So you can see I did a gouache outline of the figure in sort of this dark green. I then put in some more details with a little bit of gouache, but mostly colored pencil. And you can see that I did one of the abstracting techniques here. I did some visual framing. When you visual frame, you want to make sure that you don't frame the entire figure or object. You want to pick the area that you think is more closely related to your focal point. And in fact, I didn't even finish the frame. My frame is only sort of finished on 3 sides. 1, 2, 3. And it runs into the hair and it runs into the torso of the woman's figure. And so I just let it sort of fade out and didn't even address the fact that it's an unfinished box. So it's got some gestalt stuff we learned in Art 3 to sort of suggest that idea of being roughly unfinished. So in addition to using visual framing, I actually used a little bit of, let's go back here to the slide. I did a little bit of silhouetting, right? So I took the silhouette and worked from there and then used the silhouette and developed a little bit more detail on top of it. So I've got 2 techniques that I have anticipated using on here. If I were working on cardboard, which is my next step, I'm going to actually distort the surface of my cardboard a little bit. So you can see that example here as well. So hopefully that gives you an idea how to take your figure drawing on what you will have is a lot of scrap paper from me, and then at least figure out a method to get it moved onto another surface. You could also photocopy it. I could take this over to the copy machine in our classroom and photocopy it and use it that way. So as always, you should consult this Google slide. You should be listening in class, and of course you can be asking me lots of really good questions, but I want you to be thoughtful about what you're doing and hopefully explore the idea of abstracting the human figure.